This is one of these massive, giant alligator junipers up in the Bradshaw Mountains. Whatever the textbooks say about how big these things get, how tall they get, don't even listen to it. They get as tall as a pine tree if you give them enough water. Something I haven't mentioned about the juniper berries that I think is pretty important. It's actually what it is, it's a pine cone. This is a conifer, the juniper tree, and but it really looks like a berry, and you can eat it like a berry. It has the seeds in it, like a cone. It is a cone, but it just doesn't look like one, right? And you see this white on the berry? What that is it's natural yeast. I mean that in a good way. So, if you were going to make bread out of any of these wild indigenous species that we've mentioned or have forgotten to mention, you can grind into flour and make bread out of. This yeast, you can basically leaven your bread with it. If you take about a cup of flour, a quarter of a cup of water, right, you mix that in, you put 3 or 4 of these juniper berries in there, and then go through the process of, the same process you would do if you were just letting the yeast, the natural yeast from the air, get into the bread. You just sit and wait till it bubbles and do that whole process. You can read about it online. Then you could actually get bread that will rise, unlike your Native American flat, basically unleavened breads. Here's a prickly pear cactus with green fruit all over it. So, as you know, we could make a meal out of this. If I get hungry enough, who knows, I might. I didn't bring any food with me. Camp Lionheart has a pan I can boil, like if I wanted to harvest those green prickly pear fruits, peel them, I could boil them up and have a meal there. I didn't gather them, so I ended up doing that. That would be later, but yeah, I brought like a few crackers with me because that's what I had. Somebody gave them to me, and that's all I brought with me for food. By the end of the day, I might be really hungry, who knows. According to the deer, the bark of this plant tastes good. I'm gonna try it. Maybe boiled, not raw. This animal was really desperate. A very old campsite, probably from when this place was logged. Old logging road. Could even currently be somebody's driveway to their summer cabin. So here's what I have to work with. A thick ground layer of pine needles. I have some poles, lots of firewood. It's important because it may get down below freezing tonight. And a whole bunch of dead mullein stalks. What do you think I can do with that? These might be useful for something, you think? There's a lot of them. This looks like maybe a good place to start, because we already have part of a structure for a good windbreak. And in my belt pack, I have a folding saw. It's going to make my work a lot easier. I'm really glad I brought that. Cutting everything at an angle, so I have pointed ends that I can jab into the ground easier. The longer, straighter, sturdier poles become the roofing, or the roof beams. These don't have to be as sturdy. This took me less than an hour and a half. On to stage 2. Okay. It's 2 o'clock right now. I started at just a few minutes after noon, maybe 12:10-ish. So it's taken me slightly under 2 hours to get the whole frame up. Everything is held together by the natural formations of the wood. They just lock each other. Everything is kind of locked in place just from the way the wood is naturally formed. So now, roofing and insulation. See if I can get that done in an hour. By the way, what I've done here could be done without the folding saw. Just be more work, that's all. And it can be done without the knife. Just be more work. Take a little longer. Get it so far? Notice these are kind of slanting that way, so the gravity kind of helps the pine needles, everything stay in place. Okay, one wall is up. Now, to make it solid, so that there's not a bunch of gaps and air and wind can come through and rain could come through, to make it solid, I'm packing down when I pack it. I'm not packing it in towards the wood, I'm packing it down towards the ground. No such thing as making it too thick for stability. But also for stability, I could lay branches up against the outside just to hold it all in too. Up until this point, I am at about 2.5 hours of work. I have not been in a hurry. If I was really in a hurry, you know, maybe it would be good. Maybe I'd be farther along by now. I generally want to have a basic structure in a 3-hour time period, and then I can perfect it. Like right here, I have only one wall, then I would put the roof on, and then after that I'm at my leisure to add a wall here, to add a wall here, to enclose, you know, the entrance more. Put my fireplace here so the heat kind of, you know, works its way into my shelter. Once I have a basic windbreak and the roof on, then I've got a little more time. So within a 3-hour time period, I want to have a basic structure. Note, I've hardly used any pine needles. There's plenty here. After I'm done, there will be lots left over for me to pile inside my structure, make a big old nest that I could burrow under for warmth. Leaving a lattice out of mullein. I'm going to make several of these, and these will go on top of the roof, like so. Not sure if I'm actually going to finish this because I'm almost out of water, and so I want to go in search of some snow to melt into the water I have left in my canteen, or in my, in my water containers. Want to know what some animals have been eating? Probably deer. You notice these little broken pieces of pine boughs, just the ends of them all over the ground, and these little tiny sticks that have been chewed. You know, all the bark has been chewed off of them. Well, you take this, bite off the end of it, and underneath there, the very end of these pine boughs isn't too bad. It tastes kind of pine-ish. Actually, so what they're doing is they're eating those all the way down towards the end. The sticks are like the part that they didn't want. They're chewing the bark off of that. So actually, like it or not, underneath the ends of these pine boughs is food. The deer like it. The deer like some pretty gross things. But if you know that, it'll keep you from starving to death. Which is a good idea, not to starve to death, right? So, strip these off. Down to that little part that the deer like. You see that? I'm going to skin it a little so you can see it. It's right in here. That part in the inside. And the farther up you go, and they're eating this part too here. That little red part on the outside, they like that. Then eventually you get to a point, not telling you it tastes good, it doesn't. You get to a point where it's just a stick and that's it. And that's what's laying all over the ground here. You didn't have to go very far to find snow. It's just dirty snow on top. So I'm going to scrape off the dead dirt and junk from the top. Alright, and now it's a kind of a melt the ice cube game. Set this out in the sun and try to get that, hopefully the water that's already in it will help it melt more. I should have thought of this earlier instead of waiting until the sun's, starting to get low in the sky.
So here it is. The mullein lattice on top. I'm going to lay another layer over it. This layer will be live branches. I think the juniper looks good for that. With this layer, it's not important to make sure there's no light showing through, but I'm just trying to pick juniper because it seems to have the thickest foliage out of everything out here. So I'm going to lay it down thick enough that it won't allow my dead pine needles and everything to fall through. Well, if I did it right, there shouldn't be any big gaps in the roof for the rest of my roofing to fall through. Meanwhile, it's slowly melting. So I just wanted to show you, this comes right off the ground. You just put your hands right underneath a bunch of it, shove your hand forward and scoop as much of it as you can up, and then just lay that whole pile down on the roof. I'm starting towards the edges, working my way towards the center so that if it rained, the water would run off the center, you know, down to the lower ones, and I wouldn't have as much leakage, theoretically, hypothetically. I could get perfectionistic, but I won't, because I actually intend to get back to my car before dark. So I'll show you what we've got. Now, if I was actually planning to stay here, I would work on this all the way up till dark. Let's go underneath. This is where the entrance would be. You see, you don't want to see any light through the ceiling. I see a little bit, so if I was staying, I would load more on there. But you can see there's a really good windbreak, and I could do more walls, be completely enclosed. I would load a bunch of pine needles, maybe some fresh pine boughs in there to sleep under, to burrow inside of like a rodent, and I might have a pretty decent place to stay if I was staying. But I'm on my way home, I hope. Looks like I have some water for the hike back, a little, and some daylight. See, this is the good stuff if you're a deer, or you want to be a deer when you grow up. I'm going to stunt the growth of this tree, but that's what everybody likes, is that little piece there. And then they eat all the little bark around it where the pine needles are. I'll remind you of something else that doesn't taste fantastic, but in a previous video we mentioned that the new growth on pines and fir and all these conifers is edible, and the old growth is too. It's just, it tastes like a mixture of lemon and, well, pine or something. So spruce, any of those things it has a very strong taste. But I'm just bringing that up because here in the woods, your herbivores, like deer for instance, don't have a whole lot they can eat at this time of the year. And so these are some things that they would eat. As I mentioned, the ends of the pine boughs, they eat the needles too. But the easier part of it to eat is just the very end. And they do some of the work for you. They'll come through and they'll break some of these off. This part right underneath these orange things, just peel some of that off to make it a little more palatable. And there you go. It's not fantastic. You'll be wanting to shoot a deer or a turkey. But it's food. Nice water. This is runoff, of course. Snow melt. But it's something to drink, and I'm thirsty, especially after eating deer food. Here's the snow water. Just having it in my belt pack while I walk. My body heat warms it up and melts the snow. It's pretty cool.
I heard everything you said. I wished on the stars. I followed my dreams and I followed my heart. But they led me into a trap, so I built up this wall. I climbed up so high, I had a very hard fall. I want you all to know that I am not the same if life set me on fire, and I am a burning flame, and I'll roll over you, eat me up, as if I had no choice. But I set it all on fire, till I have lost my voice. Why me? Why now? Why not live forever? Live forever somehow. It's been a long, long time since I've felt any desire. Life tried to suck me down, so I just kept on flying higher. I got too close to the sun, and the wax just melted down. I fell out of the sky, that's when I rolled into your town.